Yes, we have been talking with French accents in the house for the past few days because we did a virtual trip to Paris over the weekend.
Oh, what did you see in Paris?
Well, we saw the Louvre, we saw Musée d'Orsay, we went for a walk on the Champs-Élysées.
Oh.
We made some French food, we looked at some French fashion and then dressed up.
Oh, that's cute.
So you also went to the top of the Eiffel Tower?
We did. We went to the top of the Eiffel Tower. We made
Is that on your Insta?
It's on her Facebook, I saw.
It's on my Facebook.
Oh, on Facebook. Okay, I got to go look at it. That's
and
awesome.
you know how rarely I'm on Facebook, and so kudos to its algorithm, because I was like, oh, something I'm actually interested in seeing.
Yeah, no question, right? That's funny.
Friendship and Paris. That is right in your wheelhouse, Taryn O'Neill.
And the best parents. You guys are so cute.
Thanks. Well, we're doing our best, you know. I mean, it's interesting trying to navigate this whole new world of home, well, I won't call it homeschooling, but, you know, distance learning and figuring out what engages your kid and what doesn't and all of it. So it's, yeah, we're just trying stuff. This was our second one. We had done New York as well, so.
I love it. Those photos are so adorable. I can't believe how grown up she is.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, I'm Tamara, and I have a 9.5-year-old. She is in 4th grade. So part of my quarantine safer at home experience has been having her at home and having us at home and having us all try and work and play at the very same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're playing because we're the Sirens.
We are.
We are. And we're chatting about nerdy things that we love, as well as catching up virtually with each other.
So what's been new for you, Taryn O'Neill?
With me. Hi, everyone. I'm Taryn. What has been new with me? I just turned in an application for the Film Independent Sloan Foundation Episodic Lab. So
right on.
Yay.
We'd sort of done that version of it for our joint project a couple of years ago for moms, but this is a science and music project that you guys know about that I've been working on forever and ever. And I literally on Thursday, the day before it was due, they had extended the application process for the Sloan Foundation part of it, which is a big foundation out of New York that incentivizes and funds science and entertainment projects. So entertainment that showcases science themes and scientist characters, but definitely not sci-fi. Don't submit sci-fi or they get mad. Because I'm always like, but this sci-fi has so much real science in it. So I get a chip on my shoulder. But yeah, I decided literally like 2:00 on Thursday, I'm like, I'm going to renew my Film Independent membership, and I'm going to like put in this application. And so suddenly I disappeared for 24 hours basically to try to get it done, as well as doing an episode of our show.
Do we all work better that way? Like,
have to.
Because I know you definitely, Taryn, you definitely work by like, you're working on a project, you kind of block yourself off. That's all you're focusing on. I have learned, I used to think I was better at multitasking. As I have progressed, I've learned that I need to block out periods of time as well. Longer time periods are more helpful for me. Gia, are you better at switching? Do you like to have time to isolate?
You know, I've got to read that book, Deep Work, because they talk about these different work types. And that is the sort of, if I'm not mistaken, because I haven't read it all, but that's the monastic type of worker who needs that sort of like removal and isolation. I found from the little bit that I read of the book that I am the journalist type, where I can drop in and pop back out very quickly. I don't need blackout times, but I disappear pretty quickly and reappear pretty quickly. So I'm fortunate that way, so that
Does it depend on what kind of project? Because I can do that. Like when I was in prep for the movie, I could drop in and out of all these different topics, subjects really, really easily. But when it's something like a huge, like, you know, creating an arc for an entire TV series where it's like there's all these really in-depth elements where I literally feel like I have to like adjust to a different dimension that operates by different physics. Like my brain literally feels like it has to go loop, and then suddenly I'm not in my reality anymore to be able to sort of craft this. So if it's any sort of deep creative work, I feel like I have to really kind of go into this alt dimension. But if it's other kind of producing type, but can be creative and producing, but I can go from like set deck to finance to budgeting to, you know, go back and forth that way. But not with the big projects.
Interesting. Is that true for you too, TK?
Yeah, I think it depends. I mean, I definitely drop in and out of things because I'm usually doing a couple of different kinds of projects at once. So I can switch, although I don't know, I'm really thinking about it now. You know, it's funny, about 6 months ago, I took a day and I went away to the beach and brought a bunch of notebooks and actually spent the entire day just doing a lot of reading and journaling and just kind of evaluating, like, what is my process? How do I work? When am I most effective? When do I feel like I'm in a flow state? All of that kind of stuff. And I think that's when it really hit me that I definitely can multitask. It's a requirement for what we do. But if it is a deeper creative project, similarly, I need some time to isolate and get into it, because I think one of my particular talents is the ability to take things from a lot of different threads and tie them all together. But if I'm going to have the space to do that, to have it make sense, I need the time to percolate and to have those connections made. For everyday stuff, yeah, I can drop in and I can drop out, and that's just part of the give and take of things. But it has affected the way, like, I check email and things like that, especially if I know that I have a deadline. I mean, bottom line, if I have a deadline, that is the best way to get me to do things. I don't know if that's journalistic. I don't know if that's monastic. I don't know if that's just deadlineistic. Maybe I'm deadlineistic.
I'm calling it panic-induced productivity.
There you go. I love that.
PIP.
You know me in alliteration.
I subscribe to the PIP methodology.
There you go. Yeah, you could even write your own book on it. People have the GTD system. Now you got the PIP, you know?
Acronyms and alliteration, and you know, it's like, it's a bestseller right there.
Funny.
But yeah, I mean, otherwise I will just go off down the rabbit. You guys know me. I go down into a rabbit hole, and like, it's like hundreds of hours of research later, and I'm like, but I don't think any of it's applicable to my actual project. But I certainly learned a lot.
You're very well informed.
I have like 1,000 bookmarks on this topic now, and I really do.
So what sent you down the rabbit hole over the last couple of days? What have you brought to tell us this week from the rabbit hole?
From the rabbit hole, robots.
Oh, I love it.
Robots. I have a Wall-E in my bookshelf too. I wish I could turn around this computer. I know I finally found my Wall-E. It was hidden in storage. But this started, I actually don't know if it's chicken and the egg, but I was thinking just about touch, and about how we're not really able to touch anybody right now, except for obviously the people we are quarantined with, and how, you know, people who are first responders, whether they're doctors or nurses or emergency workers, they're, you know, put in the most danger and having to, you know, be in close proximity with those who need help. And so I studied upon this. Can you see it?
Beautiful.
Ooh.
So, you know me in pronouncing phrases. I think I can in my head, and then I say it out loud, and I'm like, I should have practiced that.
It's okay. I've got some of that happening today too, so you're in good company.
So this is the web page for MIT's Biomimetic Robotics Lab. And so I was really fascinated in this. And this post, actually, if you can see this amazing humanoid robot, this post is from 2016. So this initial design was inspired by the needs brought forth after the 2011 Fukushima nuclear accident. So the accident and the devastation, the radiation devastation that occurred afterwards could have been mediated had someone been able to go into the plant or even get near it and turn on the cooling system again, because I guess it was just something that had to be physically done. And so this MIT team, the robotics laboratory there, they started working on this full body teleoperational system. So these robots have the dexterity of a human being, and they are controlled by a human remotely. Usually they have, the human has a vest on and sort of arm harnesses, and they're on like a footbed. So these robots basically mimic everything they do. And you can see this in the left picture here, this was sort of an early version of it. So I kind of went down the biomimetic robotics lab robot hole.
Do robots have holes? I mean, that's really the question, right?
They do. I don't know what they do with the holes, though.
There's a whole genre of speculative fiction devoted to that, Gia. Just saying.
So we'll post on our page the different videos, because MIT actually has an incredible amount of videos. I'm gonna like a humanitarian award. Oh, my connection is unstable now. Interesting.
Yeah, we heard you.
But
the robots are taking
robotic
over.
Yourself.
Oh, did I become a robot? Now the thing that they have, actually not this one, what they started to do as well is not only do they have the human robot, humanoid type robots, but they have the Boston Dynamics animal type robots that MIT is doing too, as opposed to the ones at Boston Dynamics, which are called Spot. These are called mini cheetahs, and they are super low cost. You can see them down
They are
here.
so creepy. Oh, they are creepy.
Tricks.
Yeah.
There's different sizes. There's a regular cheetah, and that regular cheetah has incredible optics and can, I'll link to all the the crazy videos.
Okay, that one right there is just presenting its butt. I mean, that's just downright
like
rude.
wiggling.
I'm sorry.
See, I knew holes would come back again quickly enough, right?
Yeah. So this is the Verge. I'm going to stop the share. This is the Verge article that just sort of is a good overview of things. The other website was actually MIT's website, but
cool.
I didn't know that Boston Dynamics had made its Spot animal robots available to consumers last year. So you are actually able to buy them for your construction sites. I mean, if you go onto their website, you can see they are actually really durable. So they're made of, they're bright yellow, so they can, be in construction sites in different areas. So, the human being can see that, oh, this is a crazy Boston Dynamics robot. But yeah, it's fascinating how far along they are coming. And then you just think of, for the humanoid robots, what they're going to be able to do, where they're going to be able to go. Will we send one to Mars? Like, will we have, what will be the addition to the rover? Will those, will we have artificial intelligence embedded in these humanoid robots, go to Mars first before we do? So I just found it really fascinating. And in this time when we won't, maybe it's not safe for us to be in close proximity with other people, and we may need to have robot avatars take our place.
Hopefully not for the long run.
Right. But sporadically,
Sporadically.
Well, and for other things too. I remember, I'm trying to think about when this was, but it was a million years ago, and I was doing some sort of promo modeling thing, so I was probably a teenager, but the guy had flown in for this corporate meeting from Copenhagen or wherever in Amsterdam or somewhere in that part of the world, and had flown in for a 2-hour meeting and was flying back. And that was like, I mean, we're talking 15 years ago at least. And I remember being upset 15 years ago about the idea of somebody being so wasteful as to fly across the world to go to a 2-hour meeting. And now I feel like there's literally no excuse for that kind of carbon expenditure whatsoever, because we have so much of this technology, and even for like actual meaningful things, delivering prescriptions or rescuing people, or like you said, turning off the power to a nuclear power plant, or turning on the coolers rather.
Yeah.
Those are really crucial things. And I think that it's going to, in this new world that we're going to all be living in, I think there's going to be a real adjustment about how much in-person stuff actually, I think we're going to just end up going so much more digital, especially because of robots like this.
I'm curious too. My better half travels so much, but for short meetings, just up and down the coast. And I always get my back up and like, why are you flying? Like, this is just for 2 meetings. But now, of course, everything is digitally, and he is digital, and he is on, 6, 7 WebEx, conferences, because they won't use Zoom because of the
Privacy
hacking,
issue?
the privacy issue. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they lessen their carbon footprint that way. I won't say what company it is, but it's definitely something that always irks me a bit.
Very interesting. There was a super cool exhibit at the Kennedy Center many years ago. It was called Japan Culture and Hyperculture. And a lot of it was robotic, as you can imagine. Like they had, what's the Nissan one?
The Honda one?
Honda one.
Honda one?
Asimov? Asimov?
Asimo.
Yeah.
He's so cute. I mean, he has like the cutest. He's like the robot from the original Battlestar, if I remember. Blinky?
Oh, you're right.
Oh.
The face.
Yes.
Yeah.
Huh.
That was really cool. They had some of the other robots that were in the skins, for lack of a better term, and they were just text bots, really, is all they were. But they were, and then they had the helper bots that were literally designed as nanny bots or to be in nursing homes and whatnot. And then my favorite robot that they had at that exhibit was these robotic stuffed animals. They were baby seals with the big eyes. Boop, boop. And you plugged them in by putting a thermometer in their mouth to check their temperature. And that's how you charged them. And those were for kids who were in like isolation units in the hospital when they were going through treatment or whatever. And they had this creature, and it wasn't just a stuffed animal. It cuddled up to you, it purred, it fell asleep. It gives you a real sense of connectivity even when you have no touch. And I was thinking, man, how valuable those must be right now for people who are stuck in isolation, or for people in general. You know, like if you're an older person and you don't really have the ability to take care of a dog, for example, because you have mobility issues or whatnot, something like that would be life-saving right now.
Agreed. There was a movie with Frank Langella he was an older gentleman living by himself, and he has some sort of a robot AI caretaker. Came out like 5 years ago or something like that.
Oh, I know that one too. I see the Netflix like cover flashing before
right. Who else is overwhelmed by the choices on if you can actually get it streaming?
Yeah.
So many things to see right now. Yeah. Not enough time to see them.
But then you just stare and you're like, but I want to make the best choice. And then you just get overwhelmed with the paradox of choice.
Yes.
And
were you able to choose this week, TK, to tell us what you're interested in?
I was, yeah. Yeah, and actually, it's so funny when we sync up sometimes. So we're gonna, here's my really horrible transition, because there's always a bad one in there. We're gonna go from rabbit holes to robots to ribbits, because mine. I'm so sorry. I apologize. You can flog me in the comments. I'm going to share my screen as I'm bringing it up. So my story this week is about xenobots, which are the first living robots. All right, can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay. So this was a piece from Popular Mechanics by Courtney Linder about xenobots, which is based on, it was based on research published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences journal. And it's a project from scientists at Tufts University of Vermont and the Wyss Institute at Harvard. So what they have done is they have combined cells, skin cells and heart cells from a frog, specifically, and this is where I'm going to say it wrong, the Xenopus laevis. I don't know if it's laevis or levis. I don't know if I should leave it or leave it.
Make the screen smaller just a bit.
Yep, absolutely. Here, let me see how I do this. Wait, that's the wrong one. Let me see. I should be able to make it smaller. Hold on.
It just looks so massive.
Yeah. Here we go.
There we go.
There we go. So, so like I said, these are creatures, organisms that have been made by combining skin cells and heart cells from the frog. And these heart cells are there because they provide locomotion, because heart cells can contract and expand, and the skin cells provide structure. Now, what makes this really interesting, and I'm coming down to here, is that this was a joint project between the biologists in the lab who were taking the stem cells from the frogs, differentiating them into the heart cells and the skin cells, and then fusing them using these teeny tiny electrodes, and folks at the lab at University of Vermont who were doing computer algorithms to figure out what structure these should be. So they would do it in the lab, they would observe them, they would send that data to the folks at University of Vermont, and then they would use the huge computers there to crunch a whole bunch of what they call evolutionary algorithms, which is basically, it mirrors the process of natural selection to see what structure they should create these to make them do all different kinds of things. And they would crunch data, crunch data, crunch data, run these algorithms. They would then send that information back to the biologists, who would then have another go at creating these creatures.
Wow.
And so you can see right there, like you can see, you know, here, this is from the computer. And if you look, you can pretty much see it mirrored in there. And the frog's skin is the green and the heart cells are the red. And there's a whole bunch. I'm gonna, there's also, I just want to show you too, this is the article from University of Vermont that talks about it. There's a video there that shows you a little bit more, and a couple different illustrations. So we will put that on the thing, but there's a whole bunch of potential applications for this. So one of them is that these are self-healing, which we've certainly seen enough of in the movies, and I couldn't help but bringing up a picture of from Terminator. Oh, that was supposed to
Oh, yeah.
You know, if you remember when he splits and then he just heals himself back up again. Well, when they split these xenobots, they were actually able to heal themselves back up again. So there's self-healing properties. There's also the crazy thing that they did where when they put a bunch of them into the medium, and they were able to actually gather up little tiny, teeny particles and basically round them up. So potentially down the road, there could be an application for this for cleaning up microplastics in the ocean, where they could release these, they would gather the microplastics and then put it up into a big ball that, you know, a human could more easily then remove from the water. They also made a couple of them that had holes, and they were able to put things in the holes so that the xenobots then were able to travel with it somewhere. So that has medical applications potentially down the road where they could do, you know, internal medicine delivery. So there's a whole bunch of different ways that this could go. We're at the very beginning stages of this, but it's an exciting development. This all came out in January, and you know, we've had a lot going on since then, so you might have missed the news. So I was excited to
I did.
Yeah. I hadn't heard about that at all. That's really cool.
Yeah, so I just think it's really cool, and it's definitely something to keep an eye on. I mean, as always, you're dealing, you know, with ethical questions when you're talking about synthetic biology, and they're definitely taking those things into account and questioning that along the way. But I thought what was interesting in reading some of the interviews with the scientists involved is that part of what they talked about is that we need to understand how complex systems work. And this, at its most basic, just using skin cells, just using the heart cells to see how these two talk to each other and are able to affect cell behavior, can be at the very beginning point of starting to understand that in a much more complex way.
Yeah, very cool. When are they going to make a liver creature, right? Considering we learned so much about how regenerative our livers are thanks to
Right?
That is true. That is true. I don't know. I mean, this has heart cells, which, you know, pumps blood, and we talked about how much blood the liver works with. So maybe there's a connection there. I don't know.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah. All right, Gia, what did you have your eye on this week?
Well, I was going to bring you an article about waterbeds, and then I realized that it wasn't about the science of waterbeds, and that I was just really nostalgic for waterbeds. So not going to bring you that one.
Why are you nostalgic for waterbeds? Did you grow up with one?
I had one. See, in the 90s, by the time that I got one, I still thought they were cool because like older people had them, right? Like my cousins who were 10 or 15 years older than I was, they were cool. They had stuff in the 80s that I didn't have because I wasn't there. And so I always wanted that. But you know, what effectively a waterbed is for a child is just a permanent source of leakage in your bedroom at any given time, either from kitty claws or stray earrings or whatever. It is an enormous pain in the butt. And it wasn't really it was a history of the waterbed, and basically like the rise and the fall of the popularity of the waterbed. And apparently they are still available for purchase with quite a bit of baffling. But that the first waterbeds were in the 1700s, and they were trying to do it for people who were bedridden, trying to have something that had mobility so you wouldn't get sores. So anyway, enough about waterbeds. That's for another time. I'm going to go to the other end of the spectrum with theater geek talk. So for all you speech nerds out there who were like doing your trochees and all the syncope and marking up your Shakespeare very
What
well.
article did you bring us today? We would like to see you play. Yeah, okay, go to your article.
I love it. All right, so this is called Linguists Hear a New Accent. Oh, did I gave you the wrong page, didn't I? Let's try this.
I'm not
That's the one.
sure. No.
Huh?
No, an accent begin.
Do you see this one
Isn't
now?
this
Yes.
it?
This is it? Okay, good. It wasn't showing that originally. Perfect. So I also went real lazy on this one because my last read was an hour long and this is 3 to 5. Guess what? You can listen to it. You don't even have to read. So I went easy for everybody this week. But this is pretty interesting. It's about the isolation in Antarctica. And I thought I'm going to take this off because there's literally nothing else to see here. Did either of you go to the science soiree where we had the astronomer who was based in the Antarctic?
I don't think so.
I had
Okay.
one that was, I thought she was going or heading there, but I
Or
don't
maybe
know.
she was heading there. I thought she'd
Yeah.
been there once before because she
Okay.
met her husband there. Anyway, that woman, as the first time I'd ever really put any thought to the people who were living in isolation there. And of course, at a certain point in the year, you literally get iced in. So they are physically, much like we are, confined to the area that they're in. But they're there for such an extended period of time and with such a small group of people that they were measuring the vowel sounds of the many British accents that were present. Because there were like 7 different accents.
Oh, wow.
And so they were looking at the vowel placement and they measured it both before they went for their extended period of time in the down south and then when they came home again. And the one thing I remember from the listening to this is the one of the vowel sounds was how you pronounce food, whether it's pronounced in the back of the mouth. Sorry, as I hit my mic, in the back of the mouth or in the front of the mouth. So I'm going to do a terrible dialect thing for you, but like if I were doing my Irish accent, I would be putting it way back in the back of my throat for food. But if I were going to be doing like Shreveport, Louisiana, I would say food. Now put it way up front. And so there's different ways of doing those vowels. And that's what they measured, are just those 2. That was one of the things that they did. But anyways, cool article to think about this, especially because, and I'll find it, regional dialects are essentially evaporating. And that's because
Wait. So hold on. Go back for a second. So you're saying is what they found is from the folks who were isolated there that it changed the accents? What was the actual finding? I missed that.
literally it shifted from the back of the mouth to the front of the mouth. That everybody was doing a more front facing vowel.
Do they know why? Was it because of the set of data, like where they were all from, or was it just that it became easier and less energy to use the front of your mouth than the back of your mouth?
That is a good question. And I imagine, first of all, I'm sure this is just an extraordinarily small sample size because ain't that many people hanging out there to begin with. So I don't really know exactly. And this was not an in-depth piece. Obviously, 3 to 4 minute read has only a little bit in there. Yeah, I think
it's because if you're in the cold, you just don't want to let in cold air into your mouth. So
you just keep it little and quiet like this. Just keep it a front movement. Yeah.
My grandmother used to go food. That's
Food. Oh,
food.
see?
It sounded like a foot, but it was like food.
Food.
And it was odd because she didn't have any accent whatsoever. I mean, heritage-wise, she's British and Scottish heritage, but a few weird words, and food was one of them.
Food. I love it. How do you each say the word M-I-L-K?
Milk.
You have more of a ilk like I do, milk. I almost have a diphthong in there. I hate it.
How do you say O-R-A-N-G-E?
Orange.
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 Which I used to say orange.
Orange. Because you're from Jersey.
There you go. What about the
Got
word?
rid of the orange, but
There's a big orange monster in the White House. The E-X-I-T.
Exit?
What do you say? You say exit, like I exit, like E-G-G-S, eggs, not X. Yeah.
Oh, and I say exit.
Yeah.
Exit. Oh, yeah. No, I say exit.
And how do you say F-O-Y-E-R?
Oh, well, if I'm being fancy?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if there's, oh, okay, I didn't.
I don't know. I mean,
Always
people
curious.
say,
us Canadians, we say it very differently usually.
Oh, you do?
How do you say it?
Foyer.
No, that's how I would say it. I would say that's the fancy way. Yeah, it's the foyer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would say foyer, but I wouldn't use foyer. I'd say come into the hall. Or come into the house.
The front. It's the front hall, yeah. But people, I remember like going to the States and they're like, no, it's foyer. And I'm like, it is?
Oh, I say foyer too. I wouldn't blink. I would know exactly what somebody meant when they said foyer, but I definitely would say foyer.
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 Well, yay for us.
Yay for us.
We're fancy in our
We
quarantine
are.
foyer.
Quarantine
Eating our
foyer.
food.
Oh, also, I'll have to send another, just on the linguistics note, when I was hearing your accent, that I read a piece that they believe the linguistic heritage of Shakespeare's English came over with the Ulster Irish and Scots who landed in the American South, like Kentucky, all of that. And they
Oh, wow.
actually think that if you go into some of those mountain towns in West Virginia and Kentucky and wherever, that the dialect that they're speaking there is probably almost identical to the dialect that you would have heard at the Globe when Shakespeare was alive, because they are isolated, and that is one of those regions that has maintained its integrity of its dialect.
That's
And if you go to MIT, I think it's the Globe's website, but they have a couple of monologues from this linguist and his son doing both like Shakespeare's English and an American, or like a contemporary British dialect of the two things, and how the rhymes work much better when you do it. And as far as I can tell, it kind of sounds like pirate. I mean, that's my best description of what that English sounds like. You know, I'm trying to remember. This is really bad. It's like, but when he who was my husband came to me as I followed Henry's course, when scarce the blood ran thick, you know, it really does sound piratey.
I'm trying to think, like, there was a sonnet I used to do a lot, and I'm trying, since brass nor stone nor earth nor boundless sea. It's even a pirate
so much better.
Yeah, so
I'm just going to do all my Shakespeare auditions in pirate form from now on.
Yep.
I feel like that's going to get you hired somewhere.
Somewhere.
I really do.
The artistic director's going to be like, stop, what are you doing? You're going to be like, well, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
You know what? When the cruise lines open back up, I have found my calling. Pirate Shakespeare.
I think we just hit on something right now. What is your what's your hot topic or hot find for the week?
Ooh, what did I find this week?
What did you find this week?
What are you watching? I guess that's the question. Is there anything you're watching or anything you're
Oh, that's a good. So just for pure bliss, Kim's Convenience on Netflix is a nice, it just makes you think that we can all get along. Thanks, Canada. It's another great Canadian
is it?
sitcom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, very much in the theater tradition. Like, I know it was adapted from a play. It was beyond obvious the first episode. I was like, oh, this clearly was a play, and somebody just let it be on TV. This is awesome. It's great. It's cute. It's about a Korean family.
A Korean family?
Yeah.
Cool. Cool.
What about you, Taryn?
I started watching Tales from the Loop on Amazon. It's I don't know what it's based on. I'm not sure if it's based on a book or not, but it's a sci-fi series. But it takes place in the 80s in this small town that has this sort of mysterious research center underneath the ground, where it sounds like it's kind of like a hyperloop going on. I mean, like a particle accelerator, but there's like, you'll find by the end of the first episode sort of what is at the heart of that. But why am I forgetting his name? There's a very famous British actor who's sort of the central piece of it, but it's very non-sci-fi. It has a lovely kind of slower and cerebral, but it's family-based, and it's just quite lovely.
Nice.
I enjoyed it.
And you?
I have actually been reading this week. There's a book that I really want to finish up, so I've made a concerted effort to focus the free time I have on that. It's called The Great Believers. It's by Rebecca, I'm going to say her last name wrong, Mackay. I'll put a link to it in the thing. And I actually started this book in early January, and then had to put it aside because I had reading and stuff to do for work and everything else. And now there's some time to pick it back up. So it is both like a great book to read right now and a not great book to read right now, because it's two parallel stories of a group of guys in Chicago, in Boys Town, in the mid to late 80s, early 90s, who are going through the AIDS epidemic, the first stages of the AIDS epidemic. And then the parallel story in 2015 of one of the guy's sisters who is still alive, his sister, and kind of her family story, and sort of all of the baggage that she has carried through her life in watching her brother and all of his friends pass away and go through this. I love it because I lived in Chicago. I went to Northwestern, and I lived right in the area that they're talking about. So it's really cool to see references to places that I know, and like I really know those places. At the same time, it's very poignant because I mean, we were talking before about like touching people and you can and you can't, and it's in the beginning stages of when the test was just being developed for HIV. So there's a lot of talk in it about being afraid to touch people and what can you do and not do, and you know, the knowledge just wasn't there yet. And so, you know, and just living at the beginning stages of a plague when you don't know what it is. So in that way, like I said, it makes the perfect book to read right now and a really hard book to read right now. But I think the writing is really wonderful. So, so I do want to finish it. So I'm almost done.
Did you see the post by Hollywood and Health by Kate? It's Hollywood and Health, which is part of the Norman Lear Center at USC. And it was a post about the height of the AIDS crisis in the early 90s, where 53,000 people died from HIV in that 1 year. And you think, oh, how is that not sort of, you know, when you think of the saturation of this pandemic into our lives, and that was so removed and remote, even though you would assume in the 80s, oh yes, everybody was shoving it under, the government was shoving it under the carpet. But I mean, we had much more awareness of it in the 90s. And there was a lyricist who had, I guess, written Beauty and the Beast and one other Disney movie. And this is what the post was sort of celebrating his life and news about, you know, the memory of the AIDS virus. I mean, the AIDS epidemic, the HIV virus, but
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's been some of the reading that I've been doing about coronavirus and COVID-19, you know, has certainly referenced that and just the different ways and understanding. And
Well,
so
and weirdly,
another topic for another day.
Yeah, I know. Because I was going to say the other weird thing about that is like almost using it as a, I don't know. I've shouldn't be watching these press conferences, but I am. And it's like, oh, they're using AIDS drugs. I'm like, yeah, it's called a virus. And, you know, calling it an AIDS drug doesn't like make it less effective, but it definitely sounds salacious when you say it like it's an AIDS drug. You know what I mean? I hate the politicization of that because we all got to live here. 50,000 people, gay, straight, or otherwise, they're still people. Well,
all right.
Anyway, okay. But I'm wearing a California t-shirt right now because I think that our governor's handling everything pretty awesomely.
Go Newsom.
So go Newsom.
Yeah.
Thank you, Governor Newsom.
Very happy to be Californian at the moment.
And thank you to all of the essential workers who are out there who are helping us get our groceries, helping us get our prescriptions, things like that. That is super appreciated. And thank you to all of our many new subscribers. Thank you to everybody who's watching. Thank you to everybody who's commented. We're so happy that our articles are reaching you and that they're exciting you and you're getting to learn new things and that we get to share that with you. That means the world to us.
Absolutely. So if you are not a subscriber, please hit that. I'm really bad at this. Hit that little subscribe button. I think it's down there. And let us know what you're thinking about. If there's an article or a podcast or something that you find that's science-y that you'd like us to take a look at, definitely put a link in the comments. And thanks again. Stay safe and healthy, everybody.
Take care.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.